I was just the wedding planner. I designed every detail of his perfect day with another woman. But when he stood at the altar in front of 300 guests, he didn't say her name. He said mine. The room went silent and my life shattered, because what came next changed everything. Before I tell you how a simple wedding planner ended up in the most shocking love triangle of the century, smash that like button if you believe in unexpected endings, and subscribe because trust me, you've never heard a story like this. My name is Sarah Martinez, and 6 months ago, I was just another struggling event planner in Manhattan, trying to keep my business alive. At 28, I'd already lost my parents, built my company from nothing, and watched it slowly crumble as bigger firms swooped in to steal my clients. I was 3 months behind on rent, surviving on ramen noodles and pure determination. Then the call came that changed everything. Marcus-chan, yes, that Marcus-chan, the tech billionaire who'd built his empire from a college dorm room, needed a wedding planner. His assistant explained that their original planner had bailed last minute, and they needed someone who could pull off the impossible. A $3 million wedding in 8 weeks. I should have known it was too good to be true when I met the bride. Victoria Sterling walked into my tiny office like she owned the world, which honestly her family kind of did. Old money, the kind that traces back to railroad barons and oil tycoons. She was stunning in that untouchable way, with perfectly straight blonde hair and a smile that never reached her eyes. Within 5 minutes, she'd made it clear that I was beneath her, just another vendor to be tolerated. "I suppose you'll have to do," she said, examining her manicured nails. "Just remember, this isn't some little backyard party. This is the social event of the year. Don't embarrass us." But then Marcus walked in, and everything shifted. He was nothing like I expected. Sure, he had that billionaire confidence, but there was something genuine about the way he shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and actually listened when I spoke. When Victoria made a snide comment about my quaint little office, Marcus quietly redirected the conversation and asked thoughtful questions about my vision for their day. That first meeting, I caught him watching me with this curious expression while Victoria rattled off demands about imported flowers and celebrity chefs. It was like he was seeing something she couldn't or wouldn't. The wedding could save my business. The fee alone would cover my debts and give me a fresh start. But as I left that meeting, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into something much more complicated than just planning a party. The next few weeks became a blur of venue visits, vendor meetings, and late-night planning sessions. Victoria treated every interaction like a power play, constantly reminding me of my place in the food chain. But Marcus was different. During our meetings, he'd ask about my story, remember details about my life, and defend my ideas when Victoria tried to shoot them down. "Sarah knows what she's doing," he'd say firmly whenever Victoria questioned my judgment. "That's why we hired her." Those late nights in his office became something I looked forward to more than I should have. While Victoria was at her social events or spa appointments, Marcus and I would work on the details. He'd order Chinese takeout, and we'd spread vendor catalogs across his conference table, talking about everything from lighting design to his vision for their future. That's when I started seeing cracks in the perfect facade. Marcus would go quiet sometimes, staring out at the city lights with this distant look. One night he finally opened up. "Have you ever felt trapped by your own success?" he asked suddenly. "Like you've built this life that looks perfect from the outside, but inside you're suffocating?" I knew I should have changed the subject, kept things professional. Instead, I found myself telling him about losing my parents, about building something from nothing, about the fear of losing it all again. He listened with an intensity that made my heart race, and when our hands accidentally touched while reaching for the same document, neither of us pulled away immediately. That's also when I discovered Victoria's secret. I wasn't supposed to be at the country club that Tuesday afternoon, but the florist had mixed up delivery times. I was walking toward the tennis courts to find Victoria when I saw her through the pro shop window, wrapped in the arms of her instructor Alessandro. They weren't just talking strategy. My stomach dropped. I stood there frozen, watching this woman who was about to marry one of the most genuine men I'd ever met, betraying him with someone she barely knew. The worst part? She saw me watching and didn't even look ashamed. She just smiled that cold smile and walked right past me like nothing had happened. "You didn't see anything," she said that evening when she cornered me in the venue's bridal suite. "And if you think you're going to run to Marcus with some pathetic attempt to break us up, think again. I know exactly what you are, Sarah. You're a desperate little girl with a crush on someone completely out of your league." Her words stung because part of them felt true. But what hurt more was the threat that followed. "Cross me, and I'll make sure you never work in this city again. I'll destroy you so completely that you'll wish you'd never answered that phone call." I should have told Marcus anyway. Every fiber of my being screamed to save him from the mistake he was about to make. But Victoria had made it clear. She had the power to end me, and Marcus was choosing to marry her. Who was I to interfere with that? So I kept working, kept smiling, kept planning the perfect wedding for a woman who didn't deserve the man she was marrying. But something had changed between Marcus and me. The professional boundaries were blurring, and we both knew it. The breaking point came during our final venue walkthrough. Victoria had arrived late, clearly frustrated about something, and immediately started criticizing everything I'd arranged. The flowers were wrong, the lighting was too dim, the table settings looked cheap. Nothing was right, according to her. "Maybe if you'd hired a real planner instead of settling for bargain basement help," she snapped, "we wouldn't be dealing with these amateur mistakes." That's when Marcus exploded. "Enough," he said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Sarah has created something beautiful here, something perfect. If you can't see that, then maybe the problem isn't with her work." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's face went white, then red. Then she stormed out without another word. Marcus and I stood there alone in the decorated ballroom, surrounded by everything I poured my heart into creating. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You don't deserve to be treated like that." "It's fine," I lied. "She's just stressed about the wedding." "No, it's not fine." He turned to face me fully, and something in his eyes made my breath catch. "Sarah, I need you to know that what you've done here, what you've created, it's extraordinary. You're extraordinary." We were standing too close. The air between us felt charged, dangerous. For a moment I thought he might kiss me, and God help me, I wanted him to. But then reality crashed back in and I stepped away. "I should go," I whispered. "Big day tomorrow." As I walked away, I made a decision that felt like tearing my own heart out. After the wedding, I was done. I'd finish this job, take my fee, and never see Marcus Chen again. It was the only way to protect what was left of my dignity and my sanity. I had no idea that Marcus was making his own decision that night, one that would change all our lives forever. Wedding day dawned perfect and clear, like the universe was mocking all of us. I arrived at the venue at 5 a.m., my professional mask firmly in place, determined to execute the flawless event I'd spent 2 months planning. Every detail was perfect, the flowers, the lighting, the music, everything exactly as Victoria had demanded. Victoria herself was radiant in her custom Vera Wang gown, holding court in the bridal suite like the queen she'd always believed herself to be. She barely acknowledged me during the final preparations, but I caught her smug smile in the mirror as her stylist put the finishing touches on her hair. "It's going to be perfect, isn't it, Sarah?" she said sweetly, but her eyes were cold as ice. "Everything exactly as it should be." I nodded and busied myself with last-minute details, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach that had been growing all morning. In a few hours this would all be over. Marcus would be married to Victoria, I'd be paid, and I could finally start forgetting about the most complicated few months of my life. But as I watched the guests filing into the ceremony space, 300 of New York's elite all dressed to impress, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very wrong. Marcus looked handsome but nervous at the altar, adjusting his tie repeatedly as he waited. I'd stationed myself at the back of the venue, ready to handle any last-minute emergencies, trying not to think about how this was the last time I'd see him. The music swelled, and Victoria began her walk down the aisle. She was breathtaking, every inch the perfect society bride. The guests all turned to admire her, and I saw Marcus straighten as she approached. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. The ceremony began without a hitch. The officiant spoke about love and commitment while I mentally checked off each element of the timeline. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Then came the vows. Victoria went first, delivering a speech about partnership and shared goals that sounded like it had been written by a corporate lawyer. It was technically beautiful, but completely devoid of real emotion. The guests smiled politely, but I could see some of them shifting in their seats. Then it was Marcus's turn. He started conventionally enough, talking about love and partnership and building a life together. But as he continued, something changed in his voice. It became deeper, more personal, like he was speaking from somewhere real instead of just reciting pretty words. True love, he said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent crowd, isn't about status or convenience or what looks good on paper. It's about finding someone who sees you for who you really are, who challenges you to be better, who brings out the best version of yourself even when you don't deserve it. I felt my breath catch. Something was happening here. Something unexpected. It's about finding someone whose strength inspires you, whose kindness humbles you, whose very presence in your life makes you grateful to wake up every morning. Someone who shows you that real love isn't about perfection, it's about truth. Victoria's smile was starting to look strained. The guests were leaning forward, sensing that this wasn't going according to script. And then Marcus looked directly at me. That's why I can't marry you, Victoria. Because I'm in love with Sarah. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the gasps, the murmurs, the sharp intake of breath from 300 shocked guests. Victoria's face went from confused to furious in the span of a heartbeat. "What did you just say?" she hissed, but her voice was picked up by the microphone, carrying her shock to everyone present. "I said I'm in love with Sarah Martinez," Marcus repeated, louder this time, his eyes never leaving mine. "And I can't stand here and make promises to you when my heart belongs to someone else." The crowd erupted. Guests were standing talking over each other, pulling out phones to capture the chaos. Victoria was screaming something, but I couldn't hear her over the blood rushing in my ears. I ran. I pushed through the crowd of shocked guests, past the photographers trying to capture my face, past the security guards who didn't know whether to stop me or help me. I ran until I reached the garden behind the venue, where I finally collapsed on a bench, shaking and gasping for air. What had just happened? Had Marcus Chan, billionaire tech mogul, really just called off his wedding in front of 300 people to declare his love for me? It felt like a dream or maybe a nightmare. I couldn't tell which. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. "Sarah, wait." I turned to find Marcus standing there, still in his tuxedo, his bow tie undone and hanging loose around his neck. He looked like he'd just run a marathon, but his eyes were clearer than I'd ever seen them. "Are you insane?" I whispered. "Do you have any idea what you just did in there?" "Yes," he said simply. "I told the truth. The truth. I stood up, anger and confusion warring in my chest. Marcus, you just humiliated Victoria in front of everyone she knows. You destroyed your wedding, probably your business relationships, definitely your social standing. For what? For me. For us, he said, stepping closer. Sarah, I've been lying to myself for months. I thought I could go through with marrying Victoria because it made sense on paper. But standing there, looking at all those people, preparing to make promises I knew I couldn't keep, I realized that the only person I wanted to make promises to was you. This is crazy, I said, but my voice was shaking. We're from completely different worlds. You're a billionaire, and I'm barely keeping my business afloat. This isn't a fairy tale, Marcus. This is real life. You think I don't know that? He reached for my hands, and this time I didn't pull away. Sarah, you've spent months showing me what real partnership looks like. You've challenged me, supported me, stood up to me when I needed it. You've made me want to be worthy of someone like you. Someone like me? Someone genuine. Someone who built something beautiful from nothing and never let success or failure change who they are at their core. Someone who sees people for who they really are, not what they can do for you. Before I could respond, we heard shouting from the venue. Marcus grimaced. I should probably go deal with that disaster, he said. But Sarah, I need you to know, whatever happens next, whatever this costs me, it was worth it. You were worth it. He started to turn away, but I caught his arm. Marcus, wait. There's something you need to know about Victoria. And so I told him. About the tennis instructor, about the affair, about her threats. I watched his face go from surprise to disgust to something that looked almost like relief. So she never loved me either, he said quietly. I don't think Victoria loves anyone but Victoria, I admitted. But Marcus, that doesn't make this situation any less complicated. Actually, he said with a smile that reminded me why I'd fallen for him in the first place, I think it makes things a lot simpler. The scandal that followed was everything you'd expect. The society pages had a field day. Victoria's affair came to light within hours. Apparently, Alessandro was more than happy to sell his story to the highest bidder once he realized his meal ticket was gone. The prenup she'd insisted on, designed to protect her assets from a gold-digging husband, ended up protecting Marcus instead when her infidelity voided the agreement entirely. Victoria disappeared to Europe within a week, her reputation in tatters and her bank account significantly lighter thanks to the wedding expenses she'd insisted on paying up front. As for Marcus and me, we took things slow. Really slow. He insisted on courting me properly, taking me on actual dates, meeting me in my world instead of always pulling me into his. He invested in my business, as a silent partner with no control over operations, and helped me build something I could be proud of. 6 months later, we're planning our own wedding. And yes, I'm doing it myself because some things are too important to trust to anyone else. It's going to be smaller, more intimate, more real than anything I've ever planned before. Last night, Marcus showed me the vows he's been working on. My name is written all through them, not as an accident or a dramatic gesture, but as a promise. A promise to build something genuine together, something based on truth instead of convenience, love instead of status. Sometimes the best plans are the ones that fall apart completely. If this story made you believe in unexpected love, drop a heart in the comments and tell me. Have you ever had your whole world change in one moment? Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories, and ring that notification bell because next week's story will blow your mind even more. Because the truth is, real love doesn't follow a timeline or a budget or a carefully crafted plan. It shows up when you least expect it, changes everything you thought you knew about yourself, and proves that sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones nobody saw coming.